Today we're going to be talking about the 5 chord and what does it mean in a diatonic key. And like the one note, it gets very kind of mystical talking about this note, less theoretical because it's a very crucial, important note and chord within the key. The 5 chord be the tempest, the whirlwind of Mozart and the thunderbolts of Zeus. It be the decisive hand of Napoleon, looking down from the pyramids. It be the Red Sea falling in on the Egyptians. It be Samson bringing the temple down. It be Yeshua flipping tables in the temple when there was money changers. It be the fall of Sodom, and it be the trumpet blast of Revelation. The so-called authentic 5-1 cadence gives a slingshot effect tonally of planets. When they cross each other's orbits, they will cross and the gravity will slingshot them in a whole other direction. And in this way, the 5 chord is the timely action that reestablishes tonal equilibrium. Pretty obvious. The 5 note be the authoritative 5th of the tonic. This is to connect the tonic and the dominant together. Jesus was said to have spoken with an astonishing amount of authority, an authority that astonished people. And Christ has been euphemized as a half man, half God. The 5 note G, therefore, is likewise of both the tonic and dominant triad. The 5 note is the swooping down of fate, as the G in relation to the tonic C is like the sun in relation to the earth. Within its own triad, G is like the avatar, the higher self merged with the lower self, who therefore shapes reality, moves mountains. And going on in the 5 chord, the major 3rd of the 5 triad and the major 7th of the scale, the B note, is the embodied aspect of triumph. It's Christ's steadfastness into his martyrdom that resolves to the next octave of C. And further, if we're going to keep filling out the dominant triad, we have GB. Now we have D, which is the 5th of the 5 chord. And it's also the major 2nd of the scale. And the D represents the fulfillment of prophecy in its certainty. The D note in the context of the key is the prophecy itself. But when we see it in the 5 chord, it is the fulfillment of that prophecy. It is the prophecy that the Father, the G note, brings about by the Son, the B note. And to finish the chord, so to speak, the F note, the minor 7th of the triad, and the 4th of the scale represents the microcosmic world experiencing the intensity of its transmutation. What comes to mind is think about the years 2012 and 2020, and the 5 chord being the only diatonic dominant 7th chord exposes its relevance that a perfectly resonant major triad, yet with a tritone 7th, shows man that he cannot serve 2 masters and that he shall now serve 1. And the 5 chord in relation to the 3 minor chord by sharing the notes G and B of an E minor triad, for example, is to say that the masculine victory of God shall be accomplished out of Christ's feminine humility, that he would turn his other cheek to the world. The dominance relationship to the 7 diminished chord is to speak of the intensity and the influxness nature of tonal transmutation. Sharing the B note and the D note, Christ is known as the one who fulfills the Old Testament prophecy by his submission to the all, to the Father. However, to speak purely in a melodic sense, the 5 note acts as the Father's presence and seemingly unconscious observation of being. as if God is not immediately obvious to man until realized and fulfilled in the five's whole entire chord. In the melodic sense, the five is like the nomad tabernacle, focusing the Israelites in a direction. Therefore, the five appears more tonally relevant harmonically than melodically. And that is to say that Christ's purpose is found, if you have eyes to see, ears to hear, so to speak, Christ's purpose is found to be more encompassing and macrocosmic than microcosmic and doctrinal. As we go deeper into the world, deeper into the microcosm, the truth gets naturally distorted. And be the same truth, but it be distorted. Yet the five be a baptismal fire that washes away the distortion. It washes away with fire. And like I said, similar to my videos on the one note, the tonic, the five note evades strictly technical analysis due to it mirrors the one. And this is why this video sounds more mystical than it does technical. The dominant, in some sense, is, I've been hesitant to state this outright, but it is almost like the negative polarity. Is to know, you can know God by knowing what God is not, and you can contrast what God is with what God is not. And in a way, the dominant chord shows you, reveals to you what God is not, and then we reach the tonic and there's unity again. So oftentimes the dominant is the moment of realization, the moment of triumph, man's climax and realization of the self. And in this way, the five is as much about Christ as it may be about Alexander the Great. In that within duality, the wheel is always turning and even accelerates. And a wheel is a circle. A circle encompasses all. But we are freed from duality by the authentic cadence, for we see eternity, quote unquote, established. It's not really established, but we see it as, in time and space, established when it hits us with awe. A-W-E, awe. That we'd acknowledge that reality is already perfect. Called an authentic cadence because the self is known. Because the self is known. That's why it's called an authentic cadence. And the self is known after Noah lands the ark, after Jericho is taken, after Jezebel is eaten by dogs. The self is known at these turning points. Authenticity is a being, and being is recognized in victory. As the five recognizes the one, the Son is one with the Father. Well, thank you guys. I know next time you're strumming your guitar, playing your piano, you're gonna be playing in C, then you're gonna hit a G chord, and all this is gonna pop up. It's funny because you'll be playing a 4-chord song on your guitar or piano, and then you'll just hit the G chord. Now you're gonna think of all of this. Sometimes it's a little ridiculous, preposterous, might sound a little pretentious, but you can look in, but you begin to look into music. And as you'll see, it does go very deep. It's hard for me to communicate this to you without, you'll notice I take notes and I read off my notes. I have to write this out to get it because it is really deep stuff.